technical thing is, I forgot to unlock the portrait orientation on the phone. But special thanks to Grace, who sent us a gift of a tripod stand that hasn't broken on me so far, because she wanted to make sure people could actually see the both of us when we were talking. So special shout out to Grace, a member of the
Thank you,
community.
Grace.
And yeah, and all of her friends who helped get this to me. So hopefully, the gift will stay. So let's get into it. I know that you will come back online. Some of you were here just now, but we were sideways, so I think we're the right way up now. And it's fixed. Fantastic.
Awesome.
So let's get into it. So today, as part of the sibling special, now obviously sibling is my sibling. This is my brother Mahawin, and as you know, I am Bhairavi, and we are going to be talking about some pretty heavy hitting topics because that is what we do, and that's just the way we roll. So, I mean, as you know, I've been dedicating my social media to highlighting the cause of the Tigrayans in Ethiopia for the past couple of days. And I'm taking a little bit of a break from that, not because I've lost it, but because we're waiting to see what's going to happen as a result of a declared unilateral truce, whatever that is. So I'm waiting on that before I write more on it. But those of you who have followed that here, thank you very much. It's much appreciated. But related to that, my brother and I wanted to discuss what we are seeing as the response of people, spiritual community, to the Tigrayan crisis. Now, part of that is going to be, yes, there's going to be a racist element. Black and brown lives are simply valued less. There was one guy who had the gall to go and write on my page saying how African people were savages and needed to change their culture, and the West couldn't be expected to do anything. And of course, there are people with those attitudes. So that's one side of it. But then there's another side of it that I see as a spiritualist who has been publicly doing this work for 8 years, much longer if you consider what's not been shown. I see that there is a far deeper problem that is happening at this time. A lot of it is connected to the phenomenon that we have been talking about as the false light. There are astrological reasons why this 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 how do I put it? The astrological reasons why this topic is very pertinent at this time, but we don't need to go into those details. For those of you who are interested, the body that very much deals with this in the skies is a body known as Borasisi, Borasisi. The asteroid code or number is 66652. So, having said that, let's turn it over to my brother and we can get started with this. And of course, I will do the hellos and acknowledgements in just a little bit.
You know, obviously, both of us are very concerned about the Tigrayan crisis right now because just listening to it is horrifying. But this applies to every crisis on the planet. And it's not just the ones which are humanitarian crises. It is the environmental crisis. It is the economic crisis. It is every problem, every lock, stock, and barrel of human invention and expression. There is not enough care and attention to address any of them. And I think it has been this particular absence or lack is engineered. We live in a selfish culture, not because we ourselves are necessarily selfish, but because it is always rat race. What is it? Dog eat dog. Every other type of aggression, individualism, triumph over others. Which, it's great in sports, it's great in the Olympics, but you should not be looking at. Speaking of the Olympics, honestly, at this point, some of people's reaction to crises, especially humanitarian crises, seems to become the oppression Olympics. It is who has it worse because the UN will only allocate this amount to these people. And it's why? Why can't everyone be helped?
Yeah. I mean, there's this artificial manufacturing of scarcity on this planet, whether it's scarcity of funds, whether it's scarcity of food, of agricultural resources. And because of this artificial manufacturing, people enter into this zero sum game mentality. If one person has it, the other person cannot. Therefore, one person has to be seen as worse off than the other. I mean, I was very disappointed today when I looked on my Twitter and I saw that the Ukrainian government had basically put a poster of how there were so many bombs being rained on Ukraine, and of all places, they compared it to Syria with just showing one bomb, saying that their crisis was bigger than Syria. I could have bitch slapped the person who did that. But it completely undermines what they're doing. They've also made comparisons to showing how terrible their situation is compared to everything else, and that's just not true. It really isn't.
And this doesn't take away. It
Yeah,
does not take away from their pain, their suffering.
exactly.
It is difficult.
Yeah,
It's horrifying.
it's horrifying, but the fact that people are put into a situation where they feel the need to do this is because of this artificial engineering of scarcity. So, and why does this tie all into spirituality? Because the same mindset is what we also see in spirituality. It's a race. People are racing to become who has the most enlightenment, who is the most ascendant. And this translates, because of the commercialization of spirituality, it translates into who has the most followers, who is an influencer who's talking about spirituality. And that rhetoric and that calculus has no business in the work that people need to be doing in the name of the spiritual. That same scarcity mindset, that same zero sum game thinking has been transported and imposed upon the way mainstream spirituality operates in the world today. Hence the dissidence, hence the apathy. And that's why I entitled the second half of this video, The Privilege of Apathy. You can afford to ignore the person who is literally a lot worse than you because you can afford to do that. In other words, if unless you yourself are in that immediate crisis situation, and if you imagine that you are removed from it, if you're in a place of security and you don't need to do anything about it, that is when you have the privilege of being apathetic to it. Now, I have real sympathy for people who have been trying, have been pushing, are facing burnout. I have real sympathy and empathy for that. Because in looking in this situation, I know there are times that I've just gone, oh my God, what the hell is the point? And some of the Tigrayan people whom I've been talking to, they've been like, you know what, you got to take breaks. You have to take care of yourself. We have been at this for 500 days. And they're practicing self care. They're practicing focusing on themselves, focusing on their families, and getting out there and spreading the message because that's the kind of balance that needs to come. But when I talk about apathy, I'm not talking about burnout. I'm talking about that illusion that spiritualists have right now, saying, well, that's a political issue, and I'm just going to focus on spirituality and cleanse my chakras. Or I'm just going to go and sit there at this retreat and send love to the world. Honey, that doesn't work. With the number of people who have been sending love, light, healing prayers to the planet for God knows how long, if all of these things actually worked, the world would be in a very different space.
Mm-hmm. Can I add something?
Go ahead.
It does work.
I was going to get to that.
Okay.
Hang on. But I agree with him. It does work, but it takes an enormous amount of effort to make it work. Are you going to say something different?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
The type of people who can make it work at it.
Yes.
They meditate, they pray, they do their practice. None of them have easy lives. And then there is Johnny Spiritual, who is on Instagram and is like, my ascended masculine feels the pain of the world. I sit in meditation and then I release it to the world. And by the way, please join my YouTube videos. You will get more extra material. I also have a class. Yeah, that is, and I think designer spirituality is really laughable, not in the sense that it's stupid, but it's because sometimes the material is correct. They're all cribbing from usually the Hindu system because
Usually.
it's the most open system. It teaches a lot of its secrets. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, fine. They're cribbing from it, so they'll talk about the Triloksha,
Or the
Atma, blah
Buddhists.
blah blah blah
Hmm.
blah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But this is literally a chimp behind a Ferrari. End of story. If
Yeah.
you do not have the spiritual practice, it does not matter. And it concerns me that Johnny Spiritual always looks so pretty. So does Jane Spiritual. You know, they're always thin, they are in beautiful environments. Honestly speaking, if you are a spiritual warrior, your surroundings will reflect that.
Yeah. This is true.
Spirituality cost me my hair. Okay? If I knew about that, I didn't even want to be in spirituality. But that portion of it came and disturbed me.
It's true.
So,
We
yeah.
actually didn't want to go on this
No,
road. Neither of us
no,
wanted it.
no. So when I see real spiritualists, they look like they've just done 3 shifts at a job. They're tired, they're sometimes limping,
Mm.
and they would like to eat healthy, but they're just like, just give me my ramen noodles and I'll sleep.
Yeah.
But they will have prayed.
Yes.
They will have cared.
Yes.
They will have put their heart and soul into the things that say, this is what being human means.
Yeah.
That comes first.
Exactly.
The appearance is like, I can't even say it's second, it's a couple of things down the line. And that is, I think, whereby it's going back to the false light.
Yep.
Because the false light is pretty. Okay.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
we usually agree on the same. We usually agree on most things anyway, which is annoying sometimes. But
it's because I got there first.
it's not
She's
true.
actually agreeing with my ideas on politics now. It's funny because she was so Capricornian in the past, and now she's like, "This is terrible.
I said
This
it.
is the sovereignty of the people." I'm like, "Yeah, I was there when I was 18."
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah,
That's very true. We agree now, but we took our time to come to it. But
you're joking.
I'm 6 years younger than you, old man. So it's like I took my time, but I wanted to do my research first. I wanted to exhaust those possibilities, which is why, as you've noticed, I'm going through things through the international institutions route, even with the Tigray situation. It's like, okay, who is in charge of this? Did you write your report? What is the name of the expert who wrote this report? What is your area of specialty? What sources do you have access to? Why did you not use those sources? Why did you not follow up? Why did you not take it to the agency that you should have taken it to? And that's the way I am pushing my activism on this because that is my background, you know? So, whereas my brother has a completely different view on it because his trajectory was very different.
What are their names? Where do they live? When social order breaks down, we will have a guillotine for them.
It's kind of
There will be justice.
Yeah, here goes that route. So my route is at the very least, let's try this first, and if they still don't do anything, we'll see what we can be done. But getting spirituality, the thing is, people kind of that love and light idea, and actually, instead of doing actions that can make a difference, they get caught up in the illusion of the action. So the thing is, when you think about what I mean, and this is partly the way, it's also the way Reiki in particular is taught. If you send energy, that's all you have to do. That's not true. You would not believe how many Reiki healers I have seen that are totally jacked because they keep pushing the energy into a situation without realizing the situation is influencing them. They keep pushing the energy in, not knowing that that creates an interaction effect. And that is not taught. And it's that same, I'm just sending you this one way and it's not going to influence me and it's not going to cost me anything. That is also dumbing down the spiritual response that can come. And it is also opening people up to vulnerabilities. Cicely says, I went on your brother's path of thinking on it. Cicely is the one that was like, there used to. Yeah, that's the one.
Ah,
That's the one. Yeah. Cicely
legit.
was telling me how she had, I don't think she mind me saying it, she had a couple of nasty Terriers activations in the
Hits.
chat. And she started fighting with it one day and yelling at Therius, the hunter stalker in the skies. And mom was like, who are you talking to? But I asked her to send me a recording because she's perfect at it. But anyway, getting back to it. Um, so this is what we wanted to come to. This is what we wanted to come to. This is what we wanted to highlight, because people need to be putting their energy into situations and work, but they don't know how to do it. Partly it's because of the watered down Instagram variety of spirituality. It's cheap. It does hurt you in the long run, but it is cheap to do and it is cheap to show. Go
And
ahead.
it is dangerous.
Yes.
If you do have some psychic talent and you are, I am going to blast my love and light. I mean, I don't have the vision my sister does, but I have seen jacked people. If you see people with eyes shining and there's a certain fixity of their gaze,
Yeah.
it could be a very high level spiritualist. It could also be something looking out of that person.
Yes.
And that's just, I mean, it doesn't even need to be a spiritualist. Sometimes you can give yourself to an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Look at some really fervent. Look at the January 6th
God.
attackers
Yeah.
on Congress. And something
Yeah.
could close up short. Something is affecting them.
Something is consciousness and is sitting inside.
And my first teacher was my martial arts teacher.
He was a cool dude.
He was a super cool dude, and he's got some interesting beliefs of his own. But one of the best lessons he taught me, he didn't even realize he's teaching me. I was talking about how this guy was starting his spiritual path, and he interrupted me and said, "You have been living a spiritual path your entire life. Your spiritual path is no more and no less than the choices you make in your life. Are you aiming to make yourself a better, more human soul? Or are you going to take as much advantage of things as you can?" It's very binary.
Yeah.
It's super binary.
Yeah.
Do you choose the whole, the all, or do you choose yourself? And most people do not realize that this is a spiritual question. It's not a moral question because the community, the society says you have to fight for what you have. If you're going to take care of people, take care of your family first. And to a degree, that is true. But the take. That's why we have hypercapitalism. That's why we have people with billions of dollars who are literally trying to come up with ways to spend it. And they're still trying to take more money. And I'm not, I don't know how spiritual I am. I know Bai is a decent person. She donates money all the time. Okay? She'll see something and be like, I'm going to do something. She'll either donate time, money, love, well, energy. And that's just how she is. I don't know if I am that particularly good, but I would literally feel in pain if I had $1 million and I just kept it all to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I might buy a house or maybe a van that's like a house because that's kind of cool now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but beyond that, people are suffering and you want to give, you want to help. That is a very human nature of the soul. But people forget that. They talk about spirituality like it's these are the powers, these are the guides. I also played D&D. It was fun, but your life is not about how many levels you get. It's about how much further or closer you get to this greater sense of yourself. And that's seen by your actions. And people forget that. People forget that very simple message.
They do. I mean, it becomes. But when I was doing my PhD, one of the things that I looked at was trying to understand everyday interactions as a performance. And that can be applied to daily life. It can also be applied to parliament, which is why I study, because I geek out about parliaments a lot. And one of the things that I remember is a distinction between doing something, showing that you're doing something, and showing that you're showing that you are doing something, and there becomes layers and layers and layers on that. In spirituality, it is not about showing the doing. It is about the doing. And for the doing for spiritualists is the being. The problem is people want to help without actually embodying those values within themselves. Help. becomes something that you do, like, I'm going to donate this, I'm going to want peace or love or whatever greater virtue and value you want to see in the world, you must first have that virtue and value in yourself. It is not something you visualize out there and project out there. It is something you naturally are by virtue of you. For me, the most spiritual person is not the person who has hundreds of thousands of followers in a temple. It is the person who is willing to stand in the place of the most shadow, in the place of the most pain. And even if it will cost them their life, they are willing to stand for the truth and to protect the innocent. That would be my understanding of spirituality. But I am very hardcore, as you know. But that is the standard I would live by, and I choose to live by. But everyone needs to find their own standard. What's happening with this cookie cutter spirituality is that everyone is kind of just taking this very diluted, dumbing it down for the masses version of it, and they think they're doing good. But what they're doing is just feeding a much larger energy system that thrives off of this fundamental disconnection that is happening between people and other people, between people and the planet, between people and those situations they can actually help. Because the governments of this world do not exist to help people, not even the international institutions. I remember, and I've said this story before, but I know there's also some new people watching. When I was about 19 years old, I was in Germany. I had a full scholarship to a public policy program. And I was listening to a speech given by, at that time, the president of the Human Rights Council, basically of the United Nations. No, 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 it was for refugees. That's right. And they were talking about Israel Palestine. I was like, okay. And I listened to this, and everyone was just sitting there zonked out. And I just asked them a very simple question: what are you doing to stop these cycles of dependency? What are you doing so that these people do not have to constantly need you for food, for basic requirements? They couldn't answer. Everyone started clapping because that was the question on everybody's mind, because they just kept telling about, we did this, we did this, we did this, fine. But what are you doing to solve the root of the situation? Because so much, whether it's in international institutions, whether it's in the spiritual world, people have built businesses and cultures surrounding their desire to be seen as the helper, the martyr, the savior, the nurturer, the person who is now giving and bequeathing. People want to be seen that way. And that in itself is an egoic construct. Because unless you are willing to look at the root of the problem, you are enabling a cycle of dependency. And to hold oneself accountable to this level of thinking about cause and effect, action and inaction, to look at the reasons behind a situation, that takes work. And that's what me and my brother were saying. To be spiritual and do the work takes real work. So let's take the example of Tigray. And one of the reasons why I started talking, previously I talked about the Ukraine, and when I was talking about Tigray, I looked at the land first. What is the history of the place? What are the belief systems of that place? What are the larger mythological constructs on that land? And I can tell you that that place has not been at peace. This is not a new conflict. These are things, issues that arose even in biblical times. And the true enemies and the true evils that besiege that land have nothing to do with ethnicity. It is a purely spiritual phenomenon. Why else would people who could otherwise be living in harmony be turned against each other in this very cruel and very inhumane way? The real solution to the planet's crises from a spiritual perspective is, I know this is going to sound lame, but hear me out. It is love. And I don't say that in a very, I'm just going to feel nice and send you hearts. No. It is the kind of love that is willing, once again, to push itself into those spaces where it is told that its opposite can only exist. And that is the kind of willingness to engage with discernment, applying the proper safeguards, which is the only thing that is going to change this planet. It is that fierce, compassionate love. It is the love that every parent has when they see their child in danger. Doesn't matter what gender they are, either side. It is the love that everyone can immediately feel if they see a poor little animal stuck in a flood somewhere. They will go and rescue it and fight for it. That kind of love, that willingness to engage, that willingness to put aside your own comfort is what will change the planet. And spirituality as it exists now is pushing people in the opposite direction. It's got to be safe, it's got to be comfortable. It doesn't.
That is a lie.
Complete lie.
There's never been a spiritual leader who has been a coward. Or was that gender neutral? I think so.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
never been.
gender,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. And I mean, our greatest spiritualists went to war. Not a physical war necessarily, but it was always a spiritual struggle, which is why they ended up with followers and books and religions that lost the entire point of things. Because spirituality is fierce,
Yeah.
it intrudes, it meddles when it sees injustice. And that is why they have religion to say, no, 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 you pray, tithe, and chill.
Karma will take care of it. Really?
Anyone who says that does not exactly understand how karma works because, well, they don't, okay? But different story. Our even politics, when you look at the polemics of politics, right? This guy is fighting for this and that guy is fighting for that. The political leader is a champion leading his or her
Oh, yeah.
people against the other evil enemy. That's how we are built. We are built on causes. And spirituality breaks that because it's not about causes anymore. It's about what is right at that moment. But it is hard. I will never ever tell anyone, hey man, go be a spiritualist. Because that is like the shittiest thing I could do to them.
Yeah.
Spirituality comes to you. In fact, in most indigenous cultures, no one said, I'm gonna be medicine keeper or shaman or whatever it is. Okay, let me take a class or let me go for a retreat and I'll take some medicine and then I will, I don't know, something. And I'm not making, okay, I'm making a little bit fun of that because it's funny. Because once you know what you are, it's almost, it's close to actually what is the people who are volunteering in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are soldiers
Yeah.
and they're doing good things, maybe whatever reasons they are volunteering, they're coming with their own equipment, their own armor, and they're fighting for a country. Good on them. And some of them are literally 19-year-olds who've played Call of Duty, and they're looking around and they're going, what am I doing here? But it seemed like a good idea.
The cause seemed right, you know?
So give me 1 second. I
Sure.
was going
Sorry.
somewhere with that. No, no, no worries. But so it is really hard, really, really hard to tell people, hey, you have to care about everyone fiercely.
Even the enemy, even the person framed as the enemy, and that's one of the hardest things. Eh,
You care so you do not end up enjoying their suffering.
that's enough.
Some things you just need to put out of their misery,
Yes.
but you don't enjoy it too much because that's dangerous. But
Even if you are standing up to something or someone, you must still have compassion. That's the hardest part. The thing about politics is, okay, you're directing something to a conflict, something needs to be done, fine, but they lose their humanity, they lose their compassion, the other, whoever, whatever they're fighting about. In a spiritual war, even if you're fighting a demon, you cannot afford to do that, because you will then adopt the same us versus them strategy. I mean, one of the things I've always been drawn to. I mean, like, I don't know why. I do not know why. I mean, most of the energies I work with are probably Judeo-Christian, and that was never something we were raised with, at all.
no,
We were raised in a household that was convinced itself it was a rationalist and atheist, but ultimately ended up going into a more conservative religious understanding. But Judeo-Christian energies had nothing to do with it. I have a personal connection with all of this stuff, so it comes to me. But even then, even in those situations, in the moment of greatest toil, you cannot afford to turn into what you are opposing. You cannot afford to dehumanize the person that you are fighting against. And that is the biggest difference between a war in a human, everyday 3D sense and a spiritual war and a spiritual warrior. And that is a hard thing. My brothers, as because we do a lot of psychic work, we do a lot of removals, we do a lot of clearings all of the time. And my brother just kind of looks at me when I say this, and he's just like, okay. But this is the thing. When you actually push back against something that has control of energy on this planet, it's not going to go without a fight. Ethiopia and other places have very ancient battles that have been fought there. You think that sending love and light is going to go and erase thousands of years of that? It's not. Facing the situation, understanding the compassion required in that situation is one of the hardest things to do. And that is why we recommend really going into the work, really taking your time to understand what is happening before sending energy out there. Because that's when a smaller field tries to connect with a much larger field, especially if that field is negatively disposed, you're just going to get caught into it, into its orbit and into its sphere. So that's one of the reasons why so much research, so much work is required. And if you're working in a group, you need to make sure everyone is on the right frequency and that each person is doing things with the correct understanding. This is real work. It's not just something you sit and do and think that there are no consequences.
It's not just psychic, it's in your gut. You have to be clear about your intention, what your intention wants to create, and how you're going to respond to the pushback. So that is something you rehearse inside you.
Hmm.
And I don't think anyone's actually talked about that because no one's actually teaching spiritual combat. They're teaching magical D&D.
That's true.
Yeah.
Martial artists, people who focus on the Dantian,
Mm-hmm.
Qigong practitioners, I think, would teach some aspect of that.
That's true.
Whether or not they deliberately say it as such, I mean, in terms of human systems, that's the system that I know that's closest that comes to my understanding of spirituality and spiritual combat. They actually will teach you to push energy back in,
Mm-hmm.
not just focus on the outflow. So that's something I recommend looking into for people who want to see that side of things, because it's so easy for people to imagine that spirituality has nothing to do with politics and it's all love and light, but that's false. It's a very superficial understanding. The cabas there works, but then you also got to deal with what comes after the cabas afterwards because they meddled in something. So, and this applies to every facilitator who does facilitations in the world, and they will not talk about it. Either they don't know or they don't want to acknowledge it. Every spiritual action and intention, even if it's an astrology reading, even if it's a healing, needs the same level of preparation. So, see what I'm getting at? So, when you're looking at changing the world through spiritual means and you're not considering all of this stuff, you're more than likely to have already fallen into some of those false light camps. The idea that feeling good and giving the love and looking good while doing it is enough will fill you with something. But is it actually going to go to the places it needs to? Probably not.
I mean, if it was, would the world be in the condition that it is? One of the great mythologies of false light is you will be saved. Or if you reach a deep enough level of spirituality, you individually will be saved. But usually it's Jesus coming back, or I don't know what the Islamic version is, or the Chinese bureaucrats come back down, or the crystal masters come down. It is always a be good and you will be saved. You are not actually pushing against the darkness. And I believe the world can be saved, but not by anyone else.
Yeah.
We are not incarnated in this world to be the princess.
Unless the princess is badass.
Then she's not waiting in a tower.
Exactly.
She is leading the charge.
Exactly. We're not meant to be here and wait for rescue and wait for somebody else to do it. We are each here to take responsibility. And that's what scares people more than anything else. It's that question of responsibility. But instead of talking about that question, spirituality in the mainstream kind of just blurs all of that because they want to make it into a space of comfort. And that is not what this work is truly about. It is not about comfort. It is not about finding a sense and space of security. You want that? Go to a psychologist. Oh, I like how Sheena put it. We are here to be Princess Leia, not Princess Aurora.
Nice, nice.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. You know, it's like this is the time that we live in, and as I think that we are going to find some energy coming towards us, but by the point it actually comes, the ones who've actually been doing the work on the front lines are going to be like, where the F are you? What do you have to teach me? Yes, I can certainly see that happening.
Not everything on the spiritual plane is an ascended master.
No, even if it
Some
pretends.
sometimes they are asshats with a lot of power. And that can even be on the good guy side.
Yeah.
Because I have, good God, I'm so tired of things coming in after all the work. Bai has done all the work and she's tired. And then at the end, something is like, hi, believe in me. Say my name. I will help you.
Pew.
Tiu nya ma chao hai.
What does that mean?
People who speak Chinese will know. I'm not going to keep the translation. So, yeah, you are on the same spiritual playing field as any being or energy out there.
Yeah.
And you can be even more moral than they are.
Yeah.
Because it's not a game of powers.
No.
It's a game of, I want to call it something else, but really it comes down to good and selfishness.
Mm. I mean, think about it, Hari. Look at India, look at China, look at America, look at all of these larger countries, just as examples. You're telling me there aren't religious people there. So if everyone's praying to God to save them, what's been going on? Why are things getting even worse? No, because religion is not going to give you those answers. Religion expects you to stay in your place. And that's how it's been co opted over time. I mean, it strikes me as very interesting that the Vatican denounced what's going on in the Ukraine. Very good, very important. But the land that literally carried the bloodline of Solomon is completely ignored. The destruction of churches that are more than 1,000 years old is completely ignored by the institution that is
Death of their
supposed,
monks.
yeah, but the rape and death of monks are completely ignored. Yeah, that tells me more than what I need to know. Oh, someone wrote religon. Yes.
Really
Yes.
like on.
Yeah, religion. Da.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. But spirituality is different. I mean, I really like the figure of Jesus, because a lot of what people think they know about him comes from the sanitized version that came through the Council of Nicaea, where this was certain versions were approved, certain versions were just left out. But if you actually look even within the sanitized version of the Bible, you see what he did. He stood up to those money lenders. He chased them out of the temple. Does that sound like somebody who was accepting of the status quo? I don't think so. People like talking about the energy of the ascended master Yeshua. If Yeshua was actually here, do you really think he would be sitting down and listening to the Christian right in the United States? Do you really think he's going to be a blonde haired, blue eyed fellow? I don't think so.
You might listen to the part about everyone has the right to bear arms.
He might.
He might.
So, if this energy did come that people are calling for, I don't think it's going to look into what their prettified understanding of an ascended master is. So, it's like when we embody that energy, it is that same fierceness, that same willingness to stand up in the face of injustice that needs to come through. And how many of us are actually willing to do that? How many of us are actually willing to see the pain and suffering that is present, not just in Tigray, in Ukraine, in Syria, in Yemen, in Afghanistan?
And admittedly, that can be scary.
Yeah,
Because here's the other side of it, acting on it does not mean you take responsibility for all of it.
yeah,
Because I know some people, it's too big. Hell, for me, like, I actually kind of took a step back when Bai was helping with the Tigrayan matters. Because at least for Ukraine, I could feel all right, there's something I could do, albeit how small. But with Tigray, like, what can I do? Do I write to my MP? Do I write to my national delegate in Malaysia? No, they don't give a damn.
They ask you, is that some kind of tiger?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
if
what they
if
would
we're
ask.
lucky, if we're lucky. So it's like, what can you do? And you have to have an understanding of, I can do this much, and I can hope for more, but I can do this much. And a lot of times, it's not a psychic or spiritual work that is required so much as it is our cut wood, carry water, talk. One of the things I saw happen was after I started talking about it in a synchronistic way, other people started talking about it. Maybe it's related, maybe it's not. We'll never be able to tell,
It
but
doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. But it started that conversation moving. And so we cannot afford to be silent.
No.
Numbers are dropping fast.
Hmm?
Numbers are dropping fast.
It's fine. That is
But
fine.
that silence is what condemns us and damns us. Maybe you can't be on the front lines, but you can make sure that problems are not hidden. So many horrors are being hidden. And our voice is our most powerful spiritual tool.
Yeah. I mean, this is where there's mixed messaging. This is where there's mixed messaging. Where, on the one hand, the people who are promising spirituality say, come and heal your trauma, feel good, you'll be whole, you'll be healed. And that's what people are going for because they think what they need is healing. But, honey bunches, everybody is unhealed. Everybody comes in with trauma. Everybody comes in with deep spiritual scars. But if we put this impossible idea that only when we are whole can we actually do something, then that is the biggest lie that is being perpetuated. This idea that you're already so broken and someone has to heal you up so that you can then function and become some superpower mega cosmic ascended being, that is a lie. Do what you can from where you are, even if it's this much, even if it's sharing a link, even if it's donating something. Do what you can from where you can. If you want to do something spiritual, do the research first.
That is the spiritual gold.
Yeah,
Acting from where you are.
yeah. But let's have a look at comments.
There's a
And
lot.
yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. Oi. So I'll just go through real fast. Oi, there's a lot.
Okay.
First of all, hello to everybody. Okay, let's see. Oh, Coyote Prophet's also here. You can't have Lucky Cat. You can't.
I trust him. He looks like a good dude.
Let's see. Let's see what we have. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Tiraf says it kept freezing and breaking up when telling signs of false lights.
Yeah. Sometimes the spiritual interferes with the real world
Very
in
direct.
odd ways.
Yeah. Okay.
Spiritual cosplay, I like that.
Oh yeah, Athena Polly says, right, and a lot of these spiritual influences look down on people that care so much of world issues like it's a bad thing and we aren't able to transcend the negativity or some BS. Yes, that's true. Athena's she's a Gen Zer who cares very, very deeply about things, very passionate, very deep carer. And yeah, that's the thing. There's nothing transcendent about not caring. People talk about spirituality and detachment. Detachment doesn't mean that you don't care about the planet. Detachment means that you are not attached to the whether or not you
The
get gold or
results.
glory or whatever results. Detachment is from the results. Detachment doesn't mean that you do not care. But spiritual Instagram models don't get that. Let's see what else we have here. Vandy Crane, who is an indigenous person who works very closely with the communities there, is also here. That is good. Uh, it's a calling, not a pushing. Yes. We each sharpen our own spiritual sword. Yes. We need a sword, we need a shield. You know, we need both. Um, okay. What else we got here? Nahia says the essay in Jesus wasn't playing. No, he did not play. As they
He
say,
has been very delayed, though.
he
I have
has.
words.
Randy says if you can't turn the tables, flip them over. I agree. Sheena says, how do you balance that it's too big? It feels like a, is it deluge or deluge?
Deluge.
Deluge. Deluge that shuts down everything. Dishes and laundry seems to be my chop wood and carry water. That's totally legit.
You are part of this world.
Yeah,
If your action is for you, continue filling yourself up, and when you are full,
or at
you
least
will have
enough.
more.
Functional enough.
Okay, that's true. When you kind of feel like I have enough to give.
Yeah. Drawing momentum says band aids won't heal bullet holes. No, they
No.
won't. They won't. Kukira says you're never going to be fully healed. The lie they keep people hooked is with being fully healed. Exactly. That woman says healing, much like time, is non-linear. It's a spiral. Yes. Athena says, how do we reach people who are shutting their ears off because they feel problems are too big for them to make an impact? Or what is it best to focus on what we can do personally, lead by example? I would say that's a great thing. Leading by example is one of the most, is the best thing that you can do. Amplifying those voices, leading by example is another thing you can do. Doing videos that call privileged people out for doing absolutely nothing is another thing that you can do. But
One thing you can do is once you've found what you want to work on, you can start networking.
yeah,
Sometimes people want to help, but they don't know how. And once you've been on that rodeo a couple of times, you can start being not a leader, but someone who helped facilitate someone into that. Here's how you start helping. It doesn't have to be big again. It could even be a tiny thing like someone shares an article,
yeah,
but you've started that chain. Because here's the thing that a lot of people hide, it feels good to help. It revitalizes us, it rejuvenates us, it connects us deeply to the planet and each other. So once you've got a hang of it, you can help.
yes,
Put the word out.
yeah.
I'm doing this.
But one thing about that is don't get addicted to being the helper because that's also a different problem.
Spirituality has a lot of rabbit holes.
Yes. So do what you can. Show people what you are doing, not to, not for your own reasons. Like if you do something like organize a protest, take a photo, say this is what we did. Please reach out, help us if you can, and that's it. And allow your work to speak for itself. Challenge those spaces where people are abusing their power in the name of spirituality to go do bullshit. You can also do that, but it really depends on what your scope is and what you're willing to do.
And that is the detachment.
Yeah.
You did this, yes. Don't identify yourself with what you did.
Yes.
Sounds super weird, but it's
Yeah.
spiritual hygiene.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Um, and I always like this name. This lady is called Mariama Jones.
Styling.
Yes. Um, I'm so grateful to the wisdom being spoken here. Thank you for all you do. We do our best. Drawing Momentum says, thank you for reminding me I need a sword and shield. Nahia says, speaking up is huge. Yes. One day an Ethiopian child will say someone cared, they tried, it will matter. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Katrina says, not to impress, but to express. That's right. Ray Cowell says, thanks for talking about being an example. Yes. I mean, it in this day and age, you cannot do something without some visibility. But it's not about making the visibility itself your brand or what you do. Your work needs to be what actually speaks. And if you're too interested in dolling up your work to make it attractive, the focus is no longer on your work. Like one of the channels I really like is just this dude. I don't know his name, but I follow the channel. Is this white hippie looking dude who sits and talks about here's some good news that happens, and in a minute he'll tell you good ecological programs that have happened and good things that people have used and done with technology. It's that's a great thing. It's the message. It's there. The person is there, and but more importantly, the energy is of hope is shown, and I like it. It's a very simple little channel, but it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful, and people enjoy it when I share his stuff once in a while. And he's not putting himself to be on a platform to be whatever. He's just sharing what he is doing and what he is reporting. That's all. That's all needs to be done. especially in this age. Coyote Prophet says, "Thank you so much for this. It is much appreciated and so needed. Most welcome."
No
Nacha Libre
problem, brother.
says, "Note about performative spirituality." Exactly. Chiron says, "Tough, tough lessons. I've come to understand so much of what you're talking about through conflict and trying to find my place, people. So many misses, lol. Obviously, with your guidance as well." Athena says, "Yes, thank you. This conversation helps. You're both warriors." Yay. Yay.
Okay, I guess I can see that.
I guess.
I guess.
Personally, I think we spend most of our lives running around our two little respective cat girls.
Oh dear God.
And the girls, they care when they hear about something happening in the world. The attitude changes. My girl will start patrolling around. When she first heard about the Ukraine, she kept patrolling back and forth, and I used to ask her, "Are you waiting to find Putin? He's not coming to the gate." Eventually she calmed down. um the other little one, Lucky feels very deeply for things. So when she hears about women and babies being hurt, she sits, and she you can tell she's not happy about it. Even those little precious little angels can show that they care. They are cats. Human beings need to do better than cats. But you know
I think the most interesting thing right now is within the lifetime for everyone listening to this, we will actually see whether or not we get past this. You will actually see that. People have been talking, oh, we will have the end of the world, the end of
yeah.
the world, the end of the world. I hate to break it to anyone, but we are currently in one of the worst timelines. There could be worse out there, but it's pretty fucking bad. And it is a test. If can overcome uh, some natural challenges and some unnatural challenges.
Yes. I mean, for me, and this is something I thought to myself a couple of years back. So if you tell me you thought about it as well, I don't know. It's not my thing. I mean, it's not from you. It's
You
my own
just
thing.
copied it
I didn't.
subconscious.
I didn't. But any one of the
What
things,
else
as I
was
was
it?
tries to take credit for whatever I said.
Okay, go for it.
But one of the things, and one of the easiest ways that I mean, when I used to think to myself, how do I describe spirituality to someone? If people were not convinced that they're either going to be healed, or they're going to go to heaven, or they're going to go get some reward afterwards through whatever they've done, if there's no discussion of reward, no discussion of merit, no discussion of a happy afterlife, would you still do the difficult thing? So if you had a very difficult choice to make, and you weren't going to get anything from it, but it was the right thing to do, would you still do it or not? That to me is spirituality. There is no expectation of a reward in this life or in another one. That is, to me, that is one of the key things. Are you going to get anything for it? Is it going to help you? Is it going to make your life better? Even if the answer is no, if you're still willing to do it, then there's something there. We need to detach spirituality from the idea that it's going to create some kind of reward, or it's going to create some kind of merit, or it's going to create something, some reason you should be spiritual for. Do it because it is the thing to do. What comes of it, you don't know. It needs to be done. That to me has always been one of the ways that I have navigated spirituality. And I did not get that from you.
Okay, that's fine.
He admitted it.
I used to be someone who thought that spirituality was a ladder of you did good things and you would be rewarded in some way. Because it made sense. That's what everyone was telling me. And when spirituality actually came, it was more like these many things are on fire. Which one would you like to put out? That is what spirituality has been for me. So I no longer think there's any reward. It is merely it's a question. Spirituality is a question. When you are crossing a desert and you have some water and you meet someone who is hasn't drunk for days, how much water do you give them? Let's say.
Yeah. Not saying you to give all of it, but something.
Yes, what do you do? And you might not, it's not going to be you give him half the water and suddenly he turns out to be a fairy and he rewards you with gems and that. No, it might literally cost you your life.
Yeah.
But it is how much you care about others. That's it.
Yep. And on the flip side, there are people who enjoy using the vibration of victimhood to hook other people to keep giving them energy. So
Hmm.
sometimes spirituality is not about helping people by giving them things or being a support. It is slapping them in the face and telling them to grow the fuck up and stop wasting your time. That is another side of it.
This is where what Bai said, do your research, and that quality of detachment is important because when someone is a professional victim, you can become a professional helper. And too many people know you just were in an unhealthy cycle. That detachment and research, looking at things with clarity, is what prevents you from being trapped by spiritual narcissists and predators.
Yes, because they are a real thing. I find that the people I have the most problems with are the ones that want me to hug them and embrace them and tell them how much they have suffered. That's a waste of my time. You want help? Here's what you can do. This is what you need. This is where you can go. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. That's what you'll get. You want anything more than that? You're not looking for spirituality. Go to a psychologist. That would be my take on things. Very clear. I have changed many lives. I can say that without ego. But that has not come by placating a person's egoic needs. That has come by looking them in the eye and talking to their soul as a completely different experience. And the numbers are dropping.
There's nothing wrong with egoic experience. It's like ice cream and cake. You
Yes.
want someone to listen to you and you want to have a good vent and cry. That is what your friend is for.
Yeah.
If you want your spiritual facility to be your friend, you are paying a very expensive amount of money, wasting the spiritual facilitator's time.
Yeah.
And a real one will just walk away because they've got better things to do.
Yes. Yes. So help. But help isn't always extending your hand. Help is sometimes just walking along and saying, no, clarify yourself and find out what you actually want. And that's a tough thing to do. I do not like turning away people who come for help, but sometimes it's not help that they want, it's just energy. So let's see if there's anything else that we need to talk about. I
A
think
lot of
we've covered
questions,
it.
right?
Yep. Nahiya says spirituality fills you up like food, otherwise, you're empty and starving for something. This is a very good analogy because it also opens up to how some people want to eat other people's spirituality.
Hmm.
So, even that analogy, it's true, but take it too far and you get a different vice. Let's see. Zen asks, how about people who have difficulty expressing themselves or being social? What's the best way to get the message out there? Sharing articles, maybe? It just doesn't feel like enough. I think everyone needs to find what comfort level they have to do with speaking. That's a personal choice. Articles is okay. Maybe you can share the voices of other people who are talking about it if you're not comfortable talking about it. That's another thing that you can also do.
Literally, the only thing I've done for the crises is I have given by a couple of suggestions.
It's important suggestions.
Important suggestions, hopefully, but yeah. And I've listened to her read out her articles and give some feedback. Sometimes what you do is enough.
Yeah,
A lot of people, especially people who are neurodivergent, really feel a hard time taking up space in the world. They do not feel comfortable, or they do not feel deserving of being here. So they shrink, they hide, they disappear, they don't know how to communicate. And I can't say this for certain, but I suspect this to be true. When you help people, you affirm that you are on this planet to help.
yeah,
And through that process, you will learn your worthiness and your worthiness for love. from yourself, not just from other people, from yourself. But in that idea of you just deserve love never worked for me. Maybe it's that neurodivergence, right? You have to do something. Maybe at a deeper level, at some point everyone is worthy of love. But I think for some people, they have to be able to help at least just a little bit. And when they do maybe that is the reward. Maybe that is the reward of spirituality. Having a reason to be here on this earth. Some people seem to come by it naturally, some people seem to need to earn it.
Coyote Prophet asks, how much of all of this is due to repeat in patterns that spirits or soul are continuing to do on this earth plane that needs to be changed? All of it. It's just going to keep repeating until people stop doing this. Or the earth figures, you know what, it's time for me to go into 5D. I don't need this form anymore. Goodbye. It's either one of the two. But this is going to keep repeating until people actually realize that spirituality is a state of being, and that state of being inspires presence and action, which changes the world in and of itself, with or without reward. That's the goal that we need to come to. And then I don't know what the earth will do. Maybe we'll be here, maybe we won't. We really just don't know. But that's the thing. Actual spirituality does not know. Religion claims to know. Spirituality does not. That's the biggest difference. Um, let's see. Drawing momentum said, I would trust a wild coyote before I would trust a random human.
I too trust a wild coyote before I trust most humans.
Mariama says, humans are 6 times more violent than our primate relatives. Can do much better. Trista says, Lucifer came to hear your talk. Lucifer's
I'm
the name.
hoping this is a cat.
This is a cat.
Okay.
I think we should probably have. Is there someone of a dog named Michael? Just bring them along. Let's see. Um, okay, Ariel Spiritual Gangster says, hi, sister and brother and two cat kids team. This is so exactly what I needed to hear and always so good to hear. Ariel is
Mhm.
someone who's also done her best in trying to raise awareness for Tigray.
Thank you.
Trista says, Lucifer is an epic cat and he loves you both. As to
Oh,
why.
I love
Oh,
cats.
we do. We do. We thought of doing a public broadcast, message with Lucky Cat, but I think people would get very weird if they saw her face all the time.
Hmm.
People get obsessed with me, and that is like the stupidest thing to do. But Lucky Cat has way more charisma than I do. So, we decided not to do the PSA with her. Yes. Um, Batwoman says, I agree. Ariel Spiritual Gaxa says, always so grateful we have the internet still for live connection to the truth. Well, we do our best and we're grateful to the people who listen. I mean, and these lives are longer because people come in at different points, and it's good to repeat some of the material that have been said for people who are coming in now. But I think that about covers what we need to cover, and hopefully this makes a dent in a good way. Um, just keep doing your best. If anything feels too good, if your ego feels too stroked by something you're doing, please think about what you're connecting to and whether it's in alignment or not. Helping people is good, but it can also get addictive if you are doing it from a from an egoic place, whether or not you know it's an egoic place. So just bear that in mind as well. Triple MS says, off to sharpen my sword. Thank
Nice.
you. You need a sword, you need a shield, you need a care bears there, you need all of this stuff. And you also need to protect the care bears. Very important. They're small, fluffy fellows.
I guess calling them Care Bears is a lot cooler than calling them the inner child.
Care bears there, man. Yes. You know, they're powerful, but they also need protection. Having said that, any last words for this live?
Good luck.
Oh, drawing momentum likes the roses of her dress. I think they're lilies, but I appreciate the sentiment. Hedge Rider sends emojis. Nice.
And thanks for listening. That was cool.
Thanks for listening. Glad we said stuff that hopefully have inspired people, and I'll keep you updated with stuff that's happening in Tigray. So, Lots of love, very many blessings, big, big hugs. Do what you can. Bye.
Take care, peeps.
Take care. Bye. Hang on.